Sarah Hayes had always loved her apartment. The sunlit windows, the hardwood floors, and the vintage fixtures gave it a warm, timeless charm. But her favorite feature was the large antique mirror that hung in the bedroom, a family heirloom passed down from her grandmother. The intricate gilded frame gleamed like something out of a fairy tale, and Sarah often admired herself in its reflection while getting ready in the mornings. But lately, something about the mirror had started to feel off. It began with small, almost imperceptible moments, her reflection seeming just a second too slow to match her movements. At first, Sarah thought nothing of it. Maybe she was tired or her imagination was playing tricks on her. But then it happened again, and again. One morning, as she brushed her hair, she noticed her reflection lowering the brush just a fraction of a second later than she did. Her hand froze, and for an instant, her reflection seemed to stare directly at her, its eyes sharper, more knowing. A chill crept down her spine. "Get a grip, Sarah," she muttered, shaking her head and stepping away from the mirror. She tried to laugh it off, but the unease lingered. The incidents grew more frequent. Some nights, while washing her face in the bathroom, she would glance up and swear her reflection wasn't moving at all. It would just stand there, watching her, its expression unreadable. Her heart would race as she turned away, refusing to look again. Her friends noticed her growing paranoia. "You're just stressed," her best friend Emma said over coffee one afternoon. "Between work and everything else, your mind's playing tricks on you. Mirrors are weird like that." Sarah nodded, pretending to agree, but deep down, she knew it was more than stress. One night, she decided to test it, and standing in front of the mirror, she raised her hand slowly. Her reflection followed, mirroring her perfectly. She exhaled in relief, her shoulders relaxing. But as she turned to walk away, something caught her eye. Her reflection didn't turn. It stayed facing forward, staring directly at her back. Sarah froze, her breath hitching. Slowly, she turned back to face the mirror. Her reflection was normal again. She backed out of the room, her pulse pounding in her ears. From that moment on, Sarah avoided the mirror. She covered it with an old sheet, refusing to let her eyes linger on its surface. But the reflection started appearing in other places. One evening, as she walked past the windows in her living room, she caught sight of herself in the glass. Her reflection was standing still, staring at her even as she kept moving. Another time, she spotted it in the screen of her switched-off television, its face inches away from the glass as if it were trying to get through. Sarah stopped looking at reflective surfaces altogether. She avoided windows, turned off her phone, and even used a matte compact to apply her makeup. But the reflection found her anyway. The whispers started a week later. At first, they were faint, like a distant breeze brushing against her ears. "Sarah." She jolted awake one night, sure she'd heard her name spoken softly in the darkness. The apartment was silent, but the air felt heavy, suffocating. "Sarah?" This time, the voice came from her bedroom. Her gaze shifted to the covered mirror, the sheet now slightly askew. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You're losing it. This isn't real." But the whispers grew louder, closer. "Sarah, let me in." Terrified, she called Emma, her voice trembling as she recounted the latest events. "You need to talk to someone," Emma said. "A therapist, maybe? You're not sleeping, and it's messing with your head." Sarah wanted to argue but couldn't. Was Emma right? Could this all be in her mind? That night, she took a sleeping pill, desperate for rest. She woke to the sound of soft tapping. Her eyes darted to the bedroom door. The sound wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the mirror. The sheet had fallen to the floor. Her reflection stood inside the glass, smiling at her. It didn't mirror her movements. It simply stared, tilting its head slightly as if amused. Sarah couldn't move, her body frozen with fear. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. The reflection leaned closer, its face pressing against the inside of the glass. "I've waited long enough," it said, its voice distorted but unmistakably hers. The glass began to ripple, like water disturbed by a stone. The reflection reached out, its hand pushing through the surface as if the mirror were liquid. Sarah screamed, scrambling backward as the reflection stepped out of the frame. It was identical to her in every way, but its eyes were wrong. Darker, hollow, filled with something unnatural. The reflection smiled, leaning down to where Sarah had collapsed on the floor. "You don't need this life anymore," it whispered. The next morning, Emma called Sarah repeatedly, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Concerned, she drove to the apartment and found the door unlocked. The place was eerily quiet. Sarah's bed was neatly made, her belongings untouched. But there was no sign of her anywhere. In the corner of the bedroom, the antique mirror stood uncovered. Emma caught her own reflection as she walked by, pausing for just a moment. Her eyes narrowed. For a split second, she thought she saw Sarah's face staring back at her from the other side. The end.